This event is jointly hosted by Climate Cadets Collective. This event is jointly hosted by Climate Cadets Collective, Pioneers Youth, and IIT Madras, three organizations that are dedicated to fostering a meaningful conversation and action around climate change, youth leadership, and sustainability. We believe that bringing together the youth leaders and policymakers is essential for driving the legislative changes needed to tackle the climate crisis. On that note, I would like to hand over the floor to Sai to get to know more about these organizations. Thank you.
Thank you, Shri. Good morning, everyone. I'm Sai, Director of Event Operations for Diplomacia Society and a member of social media team of CCube. Before we proceed, let me take a moment to introduce the three organizations that are hosting this event. So first, we have Climate Cadets Collective, which we dearly call CCube, which is a youth-led organization founded by three students from Lady Shri Ram College under the Millennium Fellowship, which is a UN academic impact project with leaders from institutions like Columbia University, Delhi University, South Asian University, and many more reputed colleges. We focus on empowering vulnerable communities, particularly slum dwellers, by fostering resilient networks through grassroots, bottoms-up climate action. Next, we are joined by Pioneers Youth, which was established after the Pioneers Expo in 2018. It is a South Asian network that facilitates youth dialogue across borders, focusing on sustainability and development. It works in 6 countries, bringing together young minds from all these countries to address and discuss issues facing South Asia and promote solutions at both national and regional levels. Finally, we welcome Diplomacia Society from IIT Madras, which is renowned for its expertise in public speaking. Together, these three organizations represent a strong partnership which is dedicated to exploring the intersection of economics and climate resilience. Now, I would like to hand over the floor to Sneha. Sneha, you can go on.
Good evening, everybody. I am Sneha, a second-year student of Economics Honours at Hansraj College, University of Delhi, and a volunteer at the Climate Cadets Collective. It is my distinct honour to introduce our keynote speaker, Honourable Gaurav Gogoi. Mr. Gogoi represents the Jorhat district of Assam in the Lok Sabha and serves as the deputy leader of the Indian National Congress in the Lok Sabha. Before entering politics, Mr. Gogoi worked in the development and non-profit sectors for a decade. After completing his engineering degree from Indraprastha University, he joined a non-profit organization dedicated to advancing social justice through youth action. His experience in rural India shaped his commitment to grassroots solutions. He later pursued a master's in public administration from New York University and worked as a policy aide to the Permanent Mission of India to the United Nations. In Parliament, Mr. Gogoi has introduced several important private member bills, including the Commission for Air Quality Management in National Capital Region and Adjoining Areas Amendment Bill 2022, the Energy Conservation Amendment Bill 2022, the Air Prevention and Control of Pollution Amendment Bill 2019. His legislative efforts reflect a deep commitment to addressing environmental challenges and building a sustainable future. We are fortunate to have him with us today to discuss the role of leadership and legislative pathways in the fight against climate change. We are honored to have you, sir. Now, I request Abhinandan Kaul, the founding executive board member, to take this event further. First, sir will deliver his remarks, followed by a moderated conversation and Q&A session.
Very good evening to everyone who's present here with us. I'm Abhinandan Kaul, and it's an honor to be moderating today's session. I'd also like to extend a very warm welcome to our esteemed guest, Mr. Gaurav Gogoi, sir. Sir, we are all very excited to hear your thoughts today and eager to even learn from your wisdom and your vision and your experiences. So I think without further ado, I'd like to invite you, sir, to kindly share your opening remarks on today's agenda which is climate action and youth leadership, legislative pathways to a sustainable future. Please, sir.
Thank you very much, and good evening to all of you. It gives me great pleasure to be here, and I see that a lot of you are already on this call, and I must be thankful to Vaishu for introducing me to this platform. Let me just go straight into what I feel as a policymaker that we are currently lacking in our focus on climate change. And sitting in the parliament, when I'm thinking about these issues, the first question that comes to my mind is who is accountable? Who do I pose the questions in parliament question out to about how much have we progressed on our climate change goals? We've made an ambitious commitments in Paris, but we understand that in order to fulfill those commitments, many departments need to coordinate among themselves. Many state governments need to get into action. Many urban local bodies need to implement those solutions on the ground. So, sitting in Parliament, which is the apex legislative body, on an issue as pivotal as climate change, the first question that we are unable to answer is who is accountable for India meeting her climate change targets? It's certainly not restricted to the Ministry of Environment and Climate Change. It's certainly not restricted to the Ministry of Heavy Industries. So, when we understand that various ministries need to work together and center and states need to work together, surely at this point we should have had some way of coordinating our actions, decentralizing our responsibilities, and tracking our progress. It's like building a machine. I know, or in a management lingo, expanding market share, that I know that at a certain point of time, this is the destination for India. And therefore, I know that I have, as a state, need to act on multiple fronts. But if I don't know how my progress is, or where is my progress stalled, I'm essentially walking in the dark. I might be doing a lot, but I might be able to do more. Or I might have several blind spots in our policy actions because I don't have the data. So I think what we really need to do at the central level is to fix accountability and create a mechanism, create a platform for actions to be coordinated at multiple levels and for data to be collated. Now, in that, there are 2-3 other things that we need to understand. We have to understand that there are certain states in India who are doing progressive work on climate change and renewable energy. There are states like Gujarat, there are states like Tamil Nadu, there are states like Karnataka. So there are these states who are actively thinking and making ambitious state action plans and reaching out to different civil society organizations and scientists and trying to improve their plans. But what happens to other states who don't have the same capacity? What happens in a state like Jharkhand, which is so coal dependent? And therefore, any move from coal to renewable energy would create massive disruption in the lives and livelihoods of their workers. How can we support a state like Jharkhand? Or what about states like Northeast, which are already pristine, or states in the Himalayan belt, which are already pristine, already they are rich in biodiversity and ecosystem. But at the same time, how do we financially incentivize them to remain that ecologically diverse and ecologically beautiful state? So we have to understand that there will be states at different stages of growth. My own experience is that many organizations are focusing on those states which are progressive or who are at the front, and not enough work is being done with the states who are in the middle or states who are at the back in terms of being progressive on climate change. And we need to figure that out. We need to motivate them. Because from a state's perspective, a state which is primarily trying to tackle unemployment as its biggest problem, or trying to improve urban infrastructure, how do you incentivize that state to prioritize climate change also? Because right now, politically, there is not a political incentive for that state. They are There is no climate change vote. There is no vote which would say that if a state or a political party is ambitious, is able to deliver, then they will get that youth vote, or they would get that green vote, or they would get that ecologically conscious vote. So right now there is no political incentive, and in a democratic setup, state governments or central government or the state will always respond immediately to political triggers or incentives or signals. So we have to understand that's the context where we are in, that there are different states, and there would be states who are just not incentivized, and therefore they would be slower to adapt to change. But you have to find out how to make that happen. Thirdly, so much I find when we talk about states actually depends at the level of urban local bodies or municipal bodies, because they are the ones who are looking at waste management, they are looking at traffic related policies, they are working with local industries. So they have a lot of capacity to promote the local industries, the small and micro and medium industries, to shift to an energy efficient path. And therefore, we need to emphasize on improving the quality of governance at the level of urban local bodies and municipalities. Again, sitting where I am, I'm not satisfied with the state of governance of in municipalities. In many cases, municipalities are not working as efficiently as they need to be doing so. And in other cases, I have found panchayat representatives, village panchayat representatives, are much more sensitized on working on development related issues, because they have been given that kind of exposure by academicians, by civil society organizations, by grassroots organizations. Similar level of work between civil society and grassroots organizations is not happening with people sitting in urban municipalities. And therefore, there is a lot of capacity building work that needs to be done over there. In all of this, when I do meet my fellow MPs from Parliament, they all emphasize that we need to create more awareness. I get that. I think there's always that need. It's a value to which needs to be taught to every generation, a value that respects ecology, that understands that ecology is a finite resource, and that a value that preserves, shifting to an alternative lifestyle, both as a community and as a society. So, but at the same time, where I do find that we don't focus enough is on entrepreneurship. And I find that here is a space where a lot of young professionals can come in, because, some of these problems, uh, they require very niche solutions. And but the problem might be small, and therefore not attract the kind of financial resources that a World Bank or Government of India is able to provide, because the limitation of the problem. Say, for instance, being in Delhi, we all know there is a lot of debate around air pollution, and one of the aspects of that debate is stubble burning uh, in the neighboring states of Punjab and Haryana. I saw a presentation by the Pollution Control Board of Punjab a few weeks ago, and I was quite impressed to see at least that they are thinking progressively and holistically on that issue, and they are trying to build partnerships between farmers and industries, and trying to see that what can we do with agricultural waste, and how that can be recycled and reused, and what is the policy incentive for an industry to do that, what kind of financial incentive is for the industry to do that. And it seems to be going down the right direction. So I feel that there's a lot of policy startups that need to come in this space, which is to go to different states, to go actually to the field, to figure out in these some of these niche problems, that who are the local stakeholders, and can we therefore find a solution by bringing various stakeholders together, and thereby create a product or create a service that has a value for which there might be investors who are attracted to it. So there is, I feel, a lot of finance which is there available at the international level, but we need to create those kind of products, innovative products and services that works in the Indian context, with our levels of scale, literacy, bureaucratic culture, complexity, multiple institutions, data or the lack of data. I think there is a lot of work that can be done, and that can only be done by people who have spent time in the field. So those are some of the things that I thought I would share with you, and these are things that I've just learned from my experience. I'm not a climate change expert. I'm a politician, and by virtue of being a politician, I'm interested in many policy issues. I'm interested in how these issues impact our society, both in the present and in the future, and therefore what is the role of politics in all of this, and how do we make political institutions like parliaments and legislative assemblies much more sensitive and accountable to these issues. I've had my own experience through the issue of air pollution, where we've got around 60 to 70 MPs engaged on air pollution. When we started, we were only a core group of 4 to 5, and in a matter of 5, 6 years, we've grown to a 60, 70 member bipartisan forum that exists outside of the party, outside of the parliament, but it comprises of MPs from all political parties of all states, north, south, east, west, and we support these MPs in pushing the agenda of air pollution, both at the parliament as well as in the constituencies. And I find that there is uh, there is a lot of interest among parliamentarians on issues related to climate change and ecology, but we need to find ways and platforms in which we bring in multiple stakeholders together, and thereby are able to push forward some measurable progress. But going back to where I started from, we need to somehow track our progress. It's like, I need to track if I've walked 10,000 steps every day or not. I need to get my indicators, my performance dashboard from the transport ministry, from the shipping ministry, from the agriculture ministry, to kind of see that are we as India, are we moving towards our goals, or are we just moving on a tangent? So, these are some of the thoughts that I thought would share with you in my opening remarks. And I'm again grateful for this opportunity. And if you have any questions or thoughts, I'll be happy to engage in a conversation with you. So thank you to all the different institutions who are involved in today's talk. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir, for such an insightful opening remark. And I think that you have certainly set the stage now for a very thought-provoking conversation tonight. So, to start off our discussion, I'd like to ask you one thing, sir. Like as you mentioned, there is a lack of political incentive for issues like climate change and sustainable development. Voters aren't there that aware, and there's not much political interest in that. So that's why governments and leaders who lead those governments are not that concerned with these issues. So I want to ask you, as you are a three-time member of parliament, and you're also the deputy leader of the Indian National Congress at the Lok Sabha. So being a politician yourself, what personally inspired you to take a lead in these issues, and to sort of champion these issues of climate change and sustainable development? And was there any pivotal moment in your career or in your life which drove you to focus on these issues?
Well, as you found in my background, that I was primarily engaged in the non-profit sector before joining politics. And the reason for me to join politics was to drive these issues through a political platform and through a political role. And in as someone who has studied policy, I enjoy looking at some pivotal problems and some big issues that that have the impact to disrupt our future, whether positively or negatively. But they are important, and they need to be treated now, and they need to be thought of now. So I've always found uh, ecology and environment and climate change to be to be one of those big issues that we've been talking about it, and not being able to do much. And I always believe in the value of doing something yourself and not just talking about it. So you make the push yourself, you try pilot initiatives yourself, and that's how you also learn. So it's easy to sit on the sidelines and just complain, but it's more important for us to actually delve into these issues and try. So that was there. And then I also come from the state of Assam, which is very pristine and gifted by nature. But again, there is absolutely no incentive for Assam to remain green. Given a choice, practically, if you could cut down trees to set up factories which would employ people, there's an incentive for that. There's a political incentive for that also, because people would rather have that employment. There would be a smaller section of people who are worried about the trees. But so therefore, how this climate change debate, where we're trying to remain green, I can see even in the case of my home state that there is actually no incentive to remain green or stay green, and there is no actual benefit to the people who live in those areas. They get no income benefit, they get no tax benefit for preserving this ecological livelihood. So there is definitely a flaw in the way we are practicing economics, and the way there's a flaw in the way we are practicing capitalism, and we need to reorient that and relook at that, and so that there's a model that works to both create profit, but at the same time uh, to preserve our ecology and give an option to those who are living on the coast or near forests, for them to actually benefit from having such a green part of the earth in that state. So that's what motivates me and continues to motivate me. I think we are closer to the answer from a few years ago, but I think a lot more needs to be done.
No, that's great to hear, sir. It's very inspiring when we see leaders like yourself take up these issues, which actually these issues should be at the forefront. But unfortunately, as you mentioned, there is not much incentive and lack of awareness as well. So these issues are not taken that seriously. But leaders like you take it seriously, and the youth, all of us have great deal of passion for these issues. So it's really inspiring, and we wish to walk in your footsteps someday, sir. So I've just got a question here from Sai, and he's asking us, sir, that what legislative changes are necessary to ensure that municipalities prioritize climate resilience in their planning?
Well, right now, we have in the existing legislation, we are giving municipalities a lot of funds. We are devolving a lot of central government funds to these municipalities. But then, how these funds are utilized, do the municipalities have the ability um, to think creatively on utilization of these funds? Do they have those necessary resources? Do they have those necessary experts? Do they have those necessary institutions that can help plan? So I think municipalities are really trying have access to a lot of financial resources, but are literally working with two hands behind the back and the legs walking in opposite directions. Uh, because people in municipalities are obviously looking at the more basic incentive of, here are some easy projects like street lights and roads, and I'll do that, and that would get me political incentive because the people can see the immediate benefit of my policies, and that increases my likelihood of getting voted in the next election. It's not as if they're not doing work; they are doing work. They are just prioritizing other work, um, and therefore, as a result, this gets pushed to the back. So I think what is really needed is tracking of finance that goes to municipalities to ensure that there is no leakage, and at the same time ensuring that municipalities, no matter where they have access to a lot of institutions that can support them in planning and budgeting, and these institutions might either be universities or IITs or think tanks, government agencies or technological platforms. But we must support our municipalities with the necessary tools and resources and skilled professionals.
Yes, sir. That's quite true. I mean, there are quite a few issues that the municipalities face. So, with respect to the funding issue, as you mentioned, I was recently reading somewhere about municipal bonds. Like the municipalities can come up with bonds and they can sell them in order to raise funds for climate projects. So do you find like what is your opinion about that? Is there any scope in that? Would that be helpful way for municipalities to raise funds for climate projects?
If I don't know how to use the money, you give me 10,000 rupees or you give me 50,000 rupees, it'll still end up being unutilized because I don't know what to do with that money or where to go with that money, right? It's like if you don't know how to set up a business, I give you 1 lakh or I give you 10 lakh, you won't know what to do. You need the training, you need the mentoring, you need the guidance, you need the tools to make that 1 lakh into 10 lakh or the 10 lakh into into 50 lakhs. So we see this in the case of air pollution, where the government of India came up with the National Clean Air Program, where a lot of municipalities got access to a lot of funds which were dedicated for air pollution. But again, just because they didn't know what to do with that money or what to do on air pollution, they didn't have the necessary support, guidance. So they ended up wasting that money on solutions which are very trivial and which are not at all sustainable. So I think we need to, really, really look at municipalities much more closely to kind of figure out, how to work. And once we figure that institution out, that third tier of local government out, then there's so many solutions that you can develop through that. I mean, if you can come up with innovative parking solutions, you can come up with innovative municipal waste solutions, you can come up with innovative energy pricing solutions, you can come up with innovative solutions for pricing commercial use of energy vis-a-vis how personal use. So I think if we just fix this issue, you'll be able to improve your performance on many other issues. If you just look at how to make municipalities work better, function better.
Yes, so I absolutely agree with that. I mean, we all do. I think so. The vision is required first. If you just have funding and hordes of funds, so you'll just go around following frivolous solutions. So maybe detailed studies are required and tailor-made solutions are required. And then after that, the funds can be utilized. So absolutely agree with that, sir. Vaishnavi has raised her hand, so I'll let her speak. Go ahead, Vaishnavi.
Thank you so much, Abhinandan. So thank you so much for your insights, sir. So there was this question just a day before yesterday. We hosted a session before that with Lekha Chakraborty, who is a professor at NIPFT, and she was mentioning something about the Green Party system, which is existing in Greece, if I'm not wrong, right, Abhinandan? So I really want to know your views about it. Like, do you think that someday, I mean, I'm sure that right now in India, there are basic other agendas and motions that are needed, and people are actually struggling with food poverty and many other like that. But do you think in future we will have such a revolution around in everybody's agendas, their manifestos, including climate? And do you think that there could be the emergence of any other third party or some new party that is taking youth or led by youth on in the green climate and for the environmental issues? That's one thing I want to know. And the second is, sir, there's this issue that whenever we are talking about moving to a sustainable future, right, it includes a lot of financing. And all these finances, when we're talking about green tax and, this taxonomies, pricing, and all of that, there is this exception and the prediction that people made that it is actually going to raise inflation in the market because it's already so high and people are not able to sustain themselves in a existing regime. What about when who as the government, basically when you are actually working out, we see that the Indian government and many other government around the world are being criticized because they say, the international bodies say that you're not actually taxing your population regarding the same, while you also have this fear of inflation rising in your own nations. So this is actually a two-way thing, that you have international pressure from organizations like UNFCCC and many others, and you have this internal thing that you need to sustain your own population in a way that they are actually moving away from the poverty while also moving towards a sustainable future.
Thanks. I think, if you look at India's past, there's always been a part of our society that have always been ecologically conscious. Whether it's the Chipko movement in Uttarakhand, whether it's the wildlife activists of Rajasthan, I think Indians, at the core, our, our religious philosophy teaches us to look after our planet and to be careful with our resources. And I think that's the kind of values our parents and, in the way we are brought up also. We are taught to reuse, or so we are taught all the right values. But at the same time, the problem comes when you have the scale of urbanization, or when you have the scale of 15 lakh people or 30 lakh people, living in a dense area. Then the household waste that comes, or the emissions that comes from their vehicles, or the plastic waste that comes from the chips that they throw about, like that just creates a huge problem that I don't think any other country in the world faces. No other, except for China, no other country has that kind of population density. So they don't understand how our demography accelerates both, problem and the solution. And therefore, whether it's the Green Party or not, I would just say that that's for young people to decide what action they want to take. And tomorrow anything is possible. I would not deny that. Somewhat might say that tomorrow there can be another, but similarly there can be a young party, another party that comes up and says something which is that we need nuclear energy, right? There can be another young party that comes which talks about that wildlife is not important, right? So you can't, human life is more important than wildlife. These are all value choices. So there is scope for political parties to always come up. But it's one thing to start a political party, and it's another thing to sustain a political party. On your issue related to taxes, I think taxes is an interesting policy, and it's a complicated policy because if you tax somebody who's poor, then that's unfair. But but at the same time, if you don't tax somebody who's able to afford that tax, then you're being inefficient. So we should look at at taxation as a policy instrument to nudge positive behavior, but also understand that you can't have knee-jerk reactions. You can't have a sudden hike in tax. Like tomorrow, your electricity bill cannot be 50% more expensive. It'll blow your household budget off. But that's what we're doing in many states. We are government is forcing people to install electricity smart meters, or let's say digital meters, which might be capturing the right price, but the gap between the price that people were paying before and now they are paying through these meters is a gap of 400 rupees more per month. Now 400 rupees per more per month for a low income household is a lot, and it's an overnight jump. So I think while we're trying to experiment with taxation policies which capture the right prices, we must ensure that we don't give a shock to the consumer, to the citizen. It needs to be gradual so that they are able to slowly adjust to a higher expenditure, because already there is a lot of strain on the financial budget of an average Indian household.
Thank you so much, sir. I would like to take the next question. Can we have Tanish?
Sorry, so yeah, okay. Yeah. First of all, thank you so much, Gaurav, so for all the insights. Sorry for my cough, but thank you so much for all the insights. I'm an international student who's studying in London currently, and my question is a bit connected to how the integration of education system with climate is in terms of India and in terms of the UK. So when we talk about like the UK, I've seen here that the government often takes advice from universities in particular and the student communities on their research and how it can be integrated into their climate policies, because of which they have produced some very efficient frameworks here to how to battle climate realities. But in India, I've seen that this education framework is not as efficient. So what are the steps that you think can be particularly important to bring this in the mainstream?
So the research you alluded to is obviously research which is of very high standard, which is of use to either local governments or state governments, and they have the evidence that using such research in the past has actually led to policy changes or modifications which have helped them. And therefore, going back to the crux is the quality and standard of research. And therefore, if you want really high standard of research within India also, you have to fund that, and you have to provide the facilities. And I think the funding for Indian research, both at let's say not at the top, but I can say for sure, sitting in Assam, at the premium institutions in Assam, or that may be in any other state, is very meager, and therefore the research does not meet that standard for being able to or be of use to the local district administration or to the local state. I would love that for to happen. I really think that Indian academia needs more funds for research, both at our premier apex institutions as well as our state level government run institutions, exactly to do this, which is to support the local districts and urban local bodies and panchayats and the local communities on issues which are very local but require a little bit of research and scientific rigor. Um, so, I said, I alluded this in the past, in my opening statement as well, that, how do we support urban local bodies? Well, one way is that if we connect them with local institutions, academic institutions, provided they get the necessary support for, long-term research. Is it fine that I take two questions and then we can, because I just have another engagement after this?
Sure, we will have the last two questions then now. Let's take Vishal, followed by Sai.
Okay, good evening, sir. So my question is that, as you said, there's no incentive for the government to work in terms of the environment. But why is it so that we take incentive? The definition of incentive is always very in terms of economics. Like we always consider incentive as money, because the plants are giving us oxygen. Isn't that incentive enough? Or like we are getting food out of them, and the of course the climate, we can, due to afforestation or like due to forest cover, it saves us from groundwater problems as we face today, and also the flash flood problems which we see in cities. So why don't we look into these indirect incentives as well, which we are receiving, and how do we feed that narrative into the minds of the people, which would enable them to save the environment, like regardless of the economic incentives, like taking the economic incentives aside. Thank you.
Well, I wasn't speaking of economic incentives. Actually, the economic incentives are even less. I was speaking of political incentives. Given a choice, you had a party that promised 10,000 new jobs by cutting down trees, or another party which in its manifesto said that will preserve the trees and will be green forever. You can you can surely understand that the voter would go for the party that would cut down trees and create those 10,000 jobs, right? So that's the nature of the voter, and that's the nature of incentives. And I think it's good to understand the realities, so that therefore we understand, we are we are we keep in mind the different challenges that do exist, um, and therefore come up with an appropriate solution. As I said, I mean, financial incentives are even less. There is absolutely no incentive, uh, financial incentive for staying green. There's absolutely no financial incentive for having one car instead of three cars. On the contrary, there are all kinds of other emotional incentives for having one car for the husband, one car for the wife, and another car to bring back the kids. So we we uh, we live in this world where there are push and pulls, and there are different competing concerns, and that's the nature of policy. And we need to figure out how to create a path that is sustainable. In the end, we should not be consuming so much energy that we burn ourselves out. And I think that's where we are going to, because but the solution is a solution that has to be meaningful and practical, and that makes people better off now rather than 10 years or 20 years or 30 years down the line. That will create more traction, that will create more acceptance, and that creates a positive momentum, and reinforces a good behavior and good policies at different states. So that's how it is, and I think it's very and different bodies are are uh, are motivated by different incentives. So a company is motivated by a profit incentive. A political party is has works to political incentives. So you just have to understand incentives, and and I think it just helps to be a bit objective about it and not be judgmental about it.
Thank you so much, sir. Sai, can we go for the next question quickly?
Yes. Sir, since I am the one who will be posing the last question, I would like to thank you for this session, for being with us here. It was a very insightful session. Now, my question to you is, see, all the developed countries came together to pledge that they will raise about $100 billion towards climate finance, and to help the developing countries reach their climate goals. Now, they allocated billions of dollars as foreign aid, which has already been allocated previously. They just relabeled it as climate finance. Thus, it helped them to reach their long overdue target, and they didn't have to pay any extra money. Also, this $100 billion target is also an overestimate, because it includes various loans which they have just cited at their face value, and various overestimations has taken place. Given such scenario, how can India, a developing country, under your leadership, address these concerns and navigate global climate negotiations to ensure that these negotiations and these climate finance remains fair and transparent for developing countries? This is my question to you.
See, you have to understand what is the end objective. The end objective is that everybody pulls their weight, everybody does the best. because in the end, it's not about my country versus your country. If the planet burns up, then we all go. So let's be clear that we all have to pull out weight, and 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 we also have to understand, one day we are the fourth, fifth largest economy. We are the new superpower. We have arrived. We are the leader, and next day we are bichara developing country. We are like this. You can't wear two hats. Like, either you are a large economy or you want a superpower. You are a, and therefore you are a doer. You are a leader, and then or you understand that actually there are many people who are poor, who are vulnerable, and therefore you need to create jobs for them. You need to protect their industry and all that. So first of all, I think government also needs to be more consistent in its language, because the foreign country says, like, you just said that you're largest economy, you're going to overtake us in 2 decades from now, in 3 decades you're number one. So what is this developing country defense, right? So I think the government at the central level needs to be much more consistent in its rhetoric. Either you frame, and you find a better frame that suits both the size of our economy, but also the design of our economy. The design of the economy being that 80 crore people need free ration out of 1.4, 140 crore, 80 crore needs ration, free ration. That's the state of India, right? You know how many people pay taxes. Only 20 million pay taxes right now. Indians pay more through income tax than what Indian corporates do. So that there's a design of our economy as well. The point being that in the end, all countries, irrespective of their size, scale, they all have to pull their weight. Even in India, all states need to pull their weight. All villages need to pull their weight. Every part of society needs to do something. And I completely agree. You're right on your understanding of the West, and we use that in negotiations to make sure that the West does its part as well, and they don't outsource the responsibilities to us. So that knowledge of what we've done and what our complexity is, and that knowledge of what the West has promised and what they have done or not done, I think that's good in negotiations to kind of build consensus and build a much more equitable roadmap for everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for answering all the questions and giving us your time from your busy schedule. It was, I think we all can agree, it was a very insightful and enriching conversation that we all had here. And I think as youth now, we will have a renewed sense of, purpose when it comes to climate change and climate action and leadership.